In Invincible Season 4, we get to see a ton of Viltrumites, some stronger than others, but Thrag was built different. And that got me thinking, what makes Thrag so much stronger than any other Viltrumite? And what makes Viltrumites strong in the first place? What is it about their biology that allows them to fly in atmosphere, in the vacuum of space, between planets, across solar systems, at speeds that we've already established in previous videos approach and potentially exceed the speed of light? They don't need propulsion, no thrusters, fuel, or wings. From an outside perspective, they just go. And as Omni-Man explains it when teaching Mark to fly,
you can wear yourself out flying. Moving fast is like tensing a muscle. You're much better off if you relax that muscle from time to time. We can literally push off anything. We can create our own leverage.
But what does that actually mean biologically? What is this muscle that they're flexing, and where's the leverage coming from? Because the more you look at what Viltrumites can actually do, the more the standard explanation falls apart. So I don't read the Invincible comics and my content stays clear of spoilers for the show, but I know my comment section will be very insistent that everything I'm about to question is already explained in the comics. But forget that. I want to actually try and explain Viltrumite biology using real-world science. Because if you look at what they do, flight, extreme strength, and faster than light travel, these are all things that go beyond raw physical force. They're not just stronger. What if I told you there's a real scientific-based concept that might help to explain all of this? And it involves space-time manipulation and one of the coolest theoretical ideas in physics. In 1994, physicist Miguel Alcubierre proposed a theoretical plan for faster than light travel that doesn't violate Einstein's theory of relativity, basically a warp space drive that can travel faster than light. The idea is, instead of moving through space faster than light, which shouldn't be possible, you manipulate the space itself. You contract space in front of you and expand it behind you. You're not moving through space. Space is more like moving around you. The object inside the bubble isn't accelerating at all. It's just sitting here while it rides this wave of space. And because you're not technically moving through space locally, you never violate the speed of light law. Now here's where it gets a little interesting for Viltrumites. The Alcubierre effect isn't all or nothing, it's a spectrum. A full warp bubble capable of FTL travel requires a large spacetime distortion, but a smaller, weaker version of the same physics could result in the same kind of flight we see in the show, a gentle spacetime gradient creating motion. Same physics, same mechanism, just different intensities. And if Viltrumite biology can generate the proper energy to produce this effect, then this can help us explain a lot of what we see in the show, like hovering, space wind, even Thrag's vortex punch. So let's get into it. The Alcubierre drive requires something called negative energy density to work. You need exotic matter, something that generates negative energy. Now, negative mass isn't antimatter. That's a really important distinction. Antimatter has positive mass and positive energy, just like regular matter. Negative mass is something different, something a little stranger. When Paul Dirac developed his relativistic quantum mechanics equations in 1928, he found something unexpected. Negative mass would gravitationally repel rather than attract. It would create negative energy density, which is exactly what the Alcubierre drive requires to work. As of right now, in science, we don't have that. We can produce it artificially, but not at any meaningful scale. But what if a Viltrumite body can? Stay with me here. Viltrumites must have a specialized biological structure in their cells. This structure doesn't store fuel per se, they don't burn anything, but to understand what they actually do, we need to talk about something called the Casimir effect. In quantum physics, two uncharged parallel plates placed extremely close together experience a measurable attractive force. This isn't because of magnetism or electricity, but it's because the space between them has fewer quantum vacuum fluctuations than the space outside them, less energy than a vacuum, which means the space in between those plates has negative energy density. This is real, this is measurable. We can demonstrate it in a lab today. Now, what if Viltrumite cells contain organelles that function like biological Casimir cavities? Let's call them Casimir ribosomes. Instead of standard mitochondria producing energy for the cell, these organelles use high-frequency cellular vibrations to pump a quantum vacuum. By doing this, they create zones inside their own biology that have less energy than a vacuum, which creates negative energy density, a real quantum phenomenon scaled up and weaponized by evolution. And the Casimir ribosomes are just a hypothetical biological mechanism that produces it. But here's where things get more interesting. The Casimir ribosome model only accounts for the repulsive negative energy side of the field, which fortunately was the hard part. But for the Alcubierre mechanism to fully work, you also need a positive energy density component, a gravitational leading edge that completes the wave. And Viltrumite biology appears to have evolved a solution for that too, in the upper body, specifically the arms and chest. Viltrumites appear to have a second class of specialized organelle. Let's call it dense core organelles. While the Casimir ribosomes pump energy out of the region to generate negative energy density, the dense core organelles do the opposite. They actively compress binding energy into concentrated regions of their own cellular matter, increasing the local mass energy density on demand. In real physics, mass and energy are equivalent through E equals mc squared. So you have two systems working simultaneously, the Casimir ribosomes in the lower body generating repulsive negative energy density from behind, and the dense core organelles in the upper body generating attractive positive mass energy. Together they create a complete asymmetric space-time gradient, repulsion behind, attraction in the front, which is exactly what this mechanism requires. They're generating thrust by geometrically altering the space around their body, and when Omni-Man's saying flying is like tensing a muscle, this makes perfect sense. Controlling which direction the space around you contracts and expands, and how intense the distortion is, how asymmetric the field, is like a biological skill, something that you can learn, something you can get better at, like balancing on one foot. It takes a little practice, but the more you do it, the better you get, which is exactly why Mark struggles with it at first. And this explains something that nobody talks about. Why do Viltrumites fly with their arms or chest always extended forward? If it's not for aesthetic and it's not for a pose, then maybe it has to be functional. As we see Mark from Earth and Viltrumites from Viltrum do the same thing. The arms are where the dense core organelles are most concentrated. Extending them forward optimizes the field geometry, placing the gravitational attraction component as far ahead as the body as possible. This allows you to ride the wave of space, which is why we never see Viltrumites flying in dramatically different configurations. The mechanism only works efficiently in that specific geometry. But we do see Viltrumites levitate, which works by generating negative mass beneath them, repelling them upward, manipulating their direction by either changing their distribution of negative mass, or using their arms as anchor weights, increasing their positive density to change direction. And here's something that the show gives us that most completely overlook. We see Viltrumites generate wind effects, not just in atmosphere, but even in the vacuum of space, where there's no air at all, where wind and shockwaves shouldn't even be possible. But as this warped space moves, it doesn't just carry the Viltrumite. It also generates a sort of gravity wave due to the trailing negative density, creating outward pressure. A ripple in gravity moving from the distortion boundary. As the geometry of space fluctuates around it, it creates effects in atmosphere like wind, or shockwave effects we see during combat. In the vacuum of space, it interacts with particles, gas, debris, or even Viltrumites that are nearby and drags them along with it, producing what looks like the impossible effects of wind in a vacuum. In extreme cases, near asteroids or any other matter, that gravitational fluctuation could even cause spaghettification, which is when gravitational forces rip things apart. Objects near a moving Viltrumite wouldn't just get pushed away, they'd get stretched and compressed as the wave passes through them, much like an earthquake, but through space-time, which explains the environmental destruction and space wind caused during Viltrumite combat. And then there's Thragg's vortex punch. Everyone's asking why Thrag can airbend, and honestly that's a fair question because what we see doesn't look like a normal punch. Before Thrag even makes contact, the surrounding air is drawn inward. Omni-Man is pulled towards his fist as Thrag charges it. This isn't really kinetic force, as kinetic force pushes things outward. What if this is dense positive mass energy concentrated at a single point, his fist, using the same mechanism needed for flying, but the result is a localized gravitational well, a region of such intense attractive space-time that everything nearby gets pulled toward it. Thrag's not doing something fundamentally different from how he flies. He's using the same exact biology, the positive leading edge that normally extends forward through his arms during flight, but it's being weaponized, collapsed into a fist at a concentration that no other Viltrumite we've seen can achieve, which is why we don't see other Viltrumites throwing vortex punches. It's a biological output ceiling that we've only seen Thrag reach. And this is where everything kind of clicks together, because it explains something about Viltrumite power scaling that the show never directly addresses. Not all Viltrumites are equal, we know that, but we don't really see why. Thrag is clearly more powerful than Omni-Man, and Omni-Man is more powerful than most Viltrumites. If their power was just raw muscle mass and physical strength, the scaling would be linear by size, much like human weight classes. But the space-time manipulation through biological means makes the scaling a little bit simpler. The scaling becomes exponential. If a Viltrumite who can generate slightly more negative energy density creates a proportionally much larger space-time distortion, then these small biological differences translate to massive differences in power, even if there's no visual change, which is exactly what we see. The gap between Thrag and Omni-Man isn't proportional to their visible differences, but their difference in power is enormous. Thrag isn't just physically stronger, his distortion field is more intense, more precise, more controllable. The vortex punch is just natural biology pushed to its limit, something that most Viltrumites can't replicate because they just don't simply have the same output. And remember, if flying and distorting space is like flexing a muscle, it's a skill, which means the ceiling isn't fixed. Some Viltrumites can climb higher on that adaptive peak than others. But Thrag didn't just reach the top of the ceiling, he might be the ceiling. Subscribe and let me know what you think, because I genuinely want to know if anyone has a better explanation for this.